We are continuing our Alexander series to the ends of the earth. He's basically conquered the entire Persian Empire at this point. What's next? The rest of the world is next. Glad you're here with me. Let's jump right into it. Epic history, Alexander series. Let's go.
At the age of just 22, Alexander, ruler of the small Greek kingdom of Macedonia, had led an invasion of the vast Persian Empire.
And he dies at 32, so there's a 10-year gap now, unless all this time he's been growing and I haven't realized it.
After a string of victories, he smashed Persian military power at the Battle of Gaugamela and took the Persian throne for himself.
King of Kings.
Now, in 330 BC, Alexander continued his march east.
Okay.
His goal, to find and kill Bessus, a Persian usurper claiming to be the rightful king, and to
Is he the one that killed Darius?
subjugate the empire's eastern provinces.
Darius.
Alexander headed first for Aria, today part of Afghanistan, where the Persian governor Satibarzanes had launched a revolt after initially pretending to submit to Alexander. The rebellion was crushed and Satibarzanes killed in single combat by a Greek cavalry officer.
Wow.
Nearby, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria Ariana, modern Herat, one of around a dozen cities that Alexander would eventually found.
Herat in Afghanistan. There's a castle that's still there. I remember this. Herat's a very, very, very cool place.
Almost all bearing his name. Alexander marched on to Frada. The Macedonian court had a long tradition of plots and assassination. 6 years before, Alexander's own father, King Philip, had been murdered by his bodyguard. He was now informed that Philotas, commander of his companion cavalry, had uncovered a plot to assassinate Alexander, but kept it secret.
Oh, he's done. He's done.
Philotas and his father Parmenion were among the most respected of Alexander's commanders, and had played crucial roles in all his great victories.
He don't care. He's done.
But when Philotas confessed, under torture, Alexander had him executed, then sent assassins back to Ecbatana, where Parmenion was governor, to kill him before he even heard of his son's death, and had a chance to turn against Alexander.
Dang.
In 329, Alexander resumed his pursuit of Bessus.
I'm telling you, Alexander does not care. Like, he is not a friendly guy.
En route, he founded the city of Alexandria Arachosia, modern Kandahar in southern Afghanistan.
Wow.
As he reached Kunduz, Bessus was betrayed by his own men and handed over in chains.
He's done.
Alexander sent him back to Persia for execution as a kingslayer. Alexander pushed on into modern Tajikistan, where the Sogdians rose up against him. He had to fight off attacks by local tribes and take several towns by assault.
Like, he is literally trying to conquer the whole world.
On the banks of the Jaxartes River, he founded the city of Alexandria Escate, meaning Alexandria the Furthest, so named because he had, at last, reached the limit of the Persian Empire. This frontier was frequently raided by nomads, known to the Greeks as Scythians.
Nomads have always lived in this area. It's so crazy.
Alexander lured them into a decisive battle near the Jaxartes. result was a crushing victory for the Macedonian king that put an end to the raids. But fighting against Bactrian and Sogdian tribes continued, frustrating Alexander and tying him down in a difficult guerrilla war.
Tyrants.
By now, many of the Macedonian troops were unhappy with Alexander. Most had not seen their homes in years, but their king seemed bent on conquest without end. What was worse, he'd begun to adopt the rituals and dress of their defeated Persian enemy, customs they viewed as effeminate and decadent.
And we saw this in the first video prior to doing the series, the speech that he gave them at Opius, or Opius. I don't know if this is going to translate into this now, but they did not like them then, and they wanted a mutiny.
At Marakanda, modern Samarkand, after a furious, drunken argument, Alexander killed Clytus the Black. Clytus had been one of Alexander's best generals, and the man who'd saved his life at the Battle of the Granicus.
He is not playing softball at all.
Alexander was full of remorse, but his growing arrogance was alienating more and more old comrades. When he tried to make his countrymen perform the traditional Persian ritual of proskynesis, prostrating themselves before the king, he crossed a line. To Greeks, this was blasphemy. Only a god was worthy of such respect, and Alexander was forced to back down.
He thinks he's a god, though. He really does.
In Bactria, another plot to assassinate Alexander was uncovered.
They're done.
This time the ringleader was a royal page, one of the sons of Macedonian nobility who attended the king. Hermolaus had become murderously bitter towards Alexander over a perceived injustice. He and his accomplices were tortured and then stoned to death. Callisthenes, Alexander's official historian, was also implicated in the conspiracy. He was thrown in prison, where he later died.
He's not having anything
That
here.
summer, in 327, according to legend, Alexander became captivated by the beauty of Roxana, daughter of a Bactrian lord.
Okay.
Their marriage was also a sound political move, helping to end local revolt against his rule, and allowing him to continue his advance into modern Pakistan and India.
The Indus River is upon us. To the edge of the world, the known world is why that says world.
Alexander now prepared to subdue the Persian Empire's most eastern provinces, which had yet to recognize his kingship. To do so, he would first have to cross the Hindu Kush mountains and reach the Indus River valley. Advancing in two columns, his army won a series of skirmishes against the Aspesi and Asakani as they fought their way into what's now the Swat Valley of northern Pakistan. After a fierce siege, Alexander took the Asakanian capital of Masaga. According to legend, it was ruled by a beautiful queen, Cleophas, who bore Alexander a son and was allowed to keep her throne.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The ruler of Taxila, near modern Islamabad, had formed an alliance with Alexander. Together, they marched to face Porus, king of Paravas, at the Battle of the Hydaspes.
More offense!
It was Alexander's costliest battle, as Porus's war elephants inflicted terrible casualties amongst the Greeks.
Yeah, those things are hard to maneuver.
But despite Porus's fearless leadership, the battle ended in a decisive victory for Alexander,
Just costly.
winning him control of the Punjab.
Okay.
Alexander wanted to push on into India, to reach the Great River, which ancient Greek geographers said formed the edge of the world. But at the river Hydaspes, known today as the Bias, his army mutinied.
That's what he said in his speech. They were too cowardly to cross the Bias.
His men had marched thousands of miles, fought countless battles,
I got far.
and not seen their homes in 8 years.
Their families.
They'd heard rumors of gigantic armies waiting for them in India. They refused to go any further.
Wow.
Alexander was furious, but had to turn the army around. He followed the rivers of the Punjab to the sea, a journey that took 10 months.
Another 10 months
On the way,
away from
he defeated
home.
the Malians, but while leading the assault on their capital, was wounded in the chest and nearly killed.
Dang.
On reaching the coast, part of the army under Nearchus boarded ships and returned to Persia by sea, sailing through the Straits of Hormuz and entering the Persian Gulf. It was one of the great ancient voyages of exploration, as these waters had been previously unknown to Greeks.
That's pretty cool. One thing that conquest always does is it uncovers. We saw that with Napoleon, uncover Egyptology for France and the Western Europe. This was interesting as well.
Meanwhile, Alexander led the rest of the army back by land through the Gedrosian Desert, today in southern Pakistan.
So that's it, no more
Extreme
Persia.
heat and shortages of food and water led to terrible suffering and many deaths among his army. On his return to Persia, Alexander executed several of his viceroys and governors, men accused of ruling unjustly and robbing temples and tombs during his long absence in the east.
Okay.
At Susa, he arranged a magnificent mass marriage of Macedonian officers to 80 Persian noblewomen to strengthen bonds between his two kingdoms. Alexander himself married 2 Persian princesses.
Yeah, polygamy is high and mighty at this time.
He also paid all his soldiers' debts and ordered 30,000 youths from across the empire to be trained in the Macedonian art of war. But at Opis, his Macedonian troops mutinied.
Yep.
They were offended by Alexander's apparent preference for Persian advisors and Persian ways. Alexander had the ringleaders executed and made a speech to the men reminding them of the glories they'd won together, and leading eventually to an emotional reconciliation.
Oh yeah.
At Ecbatana,
And by the way, if you guys want to hear that speech, it's on our channel, so go hear that speech.
Alexander's closest and most trusted friend, Hephaestion, died of fever. The king was grief-stricken, went days without eating, and ordered a period of public mourning across the empire. Alexander waged a successful campaign against the mountain raiders of Kossia, who not even the Persian kings had been able to subdue. Returning to Babylon, he was met by embassies from distant peoples, come to recognize his greatness. Ethiopians, Libyans, European Scythians,
Wow.
Lucanians, Etruscans, Gauls, and Iberians.
They came all that is insane to me. Wow.
Alexander
That Iberians and Gauls would travel this far. Etruscans would follow the tribe. That's crazy. Ethiopians.
Alexander's Bactrian wife, Roxana, was now pregnant. But as he planned his next campaign to Arabia and beyond, he developed a sudden fever and died days later, aged just 32.
Dang.
The cause of Alexander's death has never been established. It may have been malaria, cholera, typhus, or poison.
I mean, you would have to look at you just gotta like take the the first-hand accounts, the data around deaths in this age in terms of like how many people died for typhus, for cholera, for this and that, and you can make an educated guess. It feels like if he was poisoned, there would have been a plot to do it, and that plot would have been uncovered at some point, somehow, with something. So we're going to say that it was most likely disease. Because the same thing was said about Napoleon, did he have stomach cancer, or was he poisoned? Was it because when they opened his stomach up, it smelled very much like arsenic, which arsenic is a poison. So there's always skepticism. So who knows? The successors, yeah. Who were the successors?
Alexander died undefeated in battle. His reputation as a brilliant, fearless, and daring military commander remains undimmed. His decade-long campaign created one of the largest empires ever known, stretching from Greece to Pakistan. But it was vast and unstable, held together only by his own brilliance and name. Alexander left no plans for his succession, and his generals soon began fighting among themselves to carve out their own empires. In the Wars of the Successors, Alexander's widow Roxana and his young son were murdered.
Dang!
His own gold sarcophagus, en route to Macedonia for burial, was hijacked and ended up in Alexandria in Egypt.
Interesting.
Today, its location remains one of the world's great unsolved mysteries.
It's probably at the bottom of the Mediterranean.
Few men have ever had such an impact on the course of history as Alexander the Great. The breathtaking achievements of his short life ushered in the Hellenistic Age, as Greek ideas spread across the territory of his former empire.
True.
Fusing with local traditions to trigger new developments in art, science, government, and language.
And at the same time, you have a new empire budding in the West. The Romans.
Some of the successor kingdoms to his great empire were short-lived. Others endured for centuries. But all, in turn, would fall to new forces. And in the West, to the rising power of Rome.
Those were Legion shields right there. That was pretty cool. This is pretty cool. Guys, that was a very fun series. I think this was, one of my favorite series, just because I did not know much about Alexander besides, the fast facts. So to kind of see like what happened, how he was undefeated in battle, like the phalanx being like his bread and butter when it comes to his secret weapon, his ability to win against war elephants, cavalry, and then you just name it, his influence, his ability to just win politically, administratively. He was a tyrant in some areas for sure. He was a no-nonsense ruler. He thought of himself as a god because he was told he was a god. He had an ability to travel fast and furious across his empire in deserts, and you have to have so much more administrativeness that is not told here as well. Whether it be resources, whether it be men, whether it be weaponry, whether it be food, supply, fresh water that doesn't have cholera attached to it, the rebels, being able to put them down, being able to orchestrate marriages and unions and all of this stuff. Very, very impressive. Unfortunately, he died at 32. What would happen if he lived another 30 years? Arabia would have been his. Who else would have been gone? He would have been probably he would have probably went into Africa. He probably would have went back to India. He probably would have had more land than Genghis Khan ever had. That's just my opinion. Like, who is stopping the phalanx? What happens to Rome? Does Rome even happen? You know, Rome opened up as a pocket of almost like a vacuum. So would have Rome even happened to the degree it happened? Rome could have happened still, but like, would a Roman Empire happen? It would have been a city-state. What happens to Europe? What happens to you? Are you even alive because of the butterfly effect? That's the beautiful thing of history, guys. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I implore you to hit that subscribe button. Recommend more videos for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye-bye.